So I'm Mark Boothe, everyone. I'm the CMO of Domo. If you don't know who Domo is, come talk to me. I'll tell you all about it. We do tons of work with big retailers, small retailers, to try and make your data make sense, because we're big believers that data is pretty hard, but Domo makes that whole experience easy. So what we're going to do, we have a pretty illustrious crew up here. And some
That's a low bar.
That's a low bar. Some people who have built some pretty incredible brands. I'm Mark Boothe. Barrett over here, he's going to tell you all about himself and how involved he is with AI from a SaaS perspective. And then we're going to just start grilling these good friends of ours. So with that,
bring it on.
Bring it. Barrett, take it away.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. So I'm Barrett Edgington with Signal Peak Ventures. We're a local Series A venture firm, and we invest, like a lot of VCs, in AI. We care more about the data underneath the product than we care about the widget that the AI is creating. And this is, just for clarity's sake, Mark and I are the moderators here, and these three gentlemen are the experts. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
So I'll go. Blake Brown, recently at True Classic, running brand strategy and partnerships. Before that, VP of brand and creative at Kizik. Built that to what it is. If you don't have a pair, you should get a pair, and then bundle that up with some True Classic wardrobe. So,
which employee number were you at Kizik?
Technically, six or something like that.
So you were on the rocket ship.
Yeah, it was a rocket.
He built the rocket ship.
Built the rocket ship.
It was a lot of people, a lot of luck, a lot of hard work.
Dan Griffiths, President and CEO at Lume. Excited to be here with y'all.
And I'm John Ruggiero, co-CEO of Manly Bands.
So they kind of just glossed over how cool they really are. So we're going to have them dig into how cool they really are. We're going to start with Dan. How many of you have heard of Lume deodorant? So I found out last night they were kind of trying to fly under the radar for a long, long time. They're officially not flying under the radar anymore. Tell us a little bit about who Lume is, and give us a little sense as to how you're not flying under that radar anymore.
We help stinky people be less stinky. That's Lume. We were founded in 2018, and as Mark shared, we really tried to stay completely under the radar, because the only competitors in this category are enormous. I mean, P&G has $40 billion of EBITDA. They can just crush you. And so we didn't tell anybody how big we were. And so one of the greatest moments of my professional career was when a friend sent me an iPhone picture from inside of a Unilever boardroom, where they had taken a photo of a I probably shouldn't be sharing this, but oh well.
Do it.
This is being live streamed, I believe.
Being live streamed
straight into their offices.
What's his name?
Where they a picture of some slide on the wall where it said Lume had just launched in Target at the time, so we launched 2 years ago at Target, and it said Lume deodorant, probably less than $30 million in digital revenue. At the time, we had $200 million of digital revenue. So we did manage to fly under the radar, and so it's been a wild ride, a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dan. Jonathan.
Oh, sure. So Manly Bands actually started because I had a problem. I couldn't find a wedding band that I liked, that fit. I have a size 17 fingers. And so I'd go into a jewelry store and they'd be like, we can't size you. And of course, we don't have anything for you. And so I ended up just going online and finding some crappy website that probably was direct from China. And I ordered a ring and it came. And of course, it didn't fit because 25%.
Did it turn your finger green?
Yeah, no, it didn't. I'm not allergic to nickel, thankfully. Yeah, but no, it just came and fell out of the little bag, fell on the ground, and it's just not a really great experience. You know, I see my wife getting all excited about all the different options that she had and all the different styles to choose from, and I just kind of had like maybe 4 styles in the bag, and none of them fit anyway. So we got married, moved to Florida, and decided, you know, maybe we can solve some of this problem. You know, I had a background in digital marketing and ran a little agency, and so we put our heads together. Michelle was super creative and came up with the styles and the designs, and we started in our garage, and it's been a wild ride.
And how big are you now?
Now we're 45 folks. We manufacture right here in Linden, in Utah County, and we've grown to mid-8 figures. It's been wild.
So men, don't wait. Today, go check out manlybands.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Ooh, that was almost embarrassing.
Yeah.
Go to png.com and buy some. What are you talking about? Go check them out.
Well, don't go to wicked.com, right? So you gotta
yeah, if
be
anybody
careful
heard about
when you
that,
throw those
we
URLs
bought
out
some
there.
dolls. We did for Christmas, and my wife called me and she's like, we got a problem. There may have been some very bad stuff printed on the new Wicked doll sites.
Oh, wow.
That's funny.
Bad.
A very similar problem. It's just, our founder, Ryan Bartlett, same problem. He's just like, a lot of the shirts, like just basic wear, it's like they're too big, they're too this, they're too that. They're not, fitting the way I want it to, right? Where it's tight in the arms, the quality's still there. It's a little looser in the belly for us that are, have those dad bods. And so that was kind of a problem. And it started with that one SKU of shirts. Now it's like a work wear, active wear, and just kind of leaning on that trope of like, you can still, because I don't think a lot of people know this in the fashion world, and there's so much markup in terms of like the cost of goods to like manufacture. The markup is extremely high. And so for us, it's like accessibility, fit, quality, and instilling like look good, feel good. So like when you look good, your confidence raises to another level, right? And most guys traditionally don't care how they look, but I think a lot of women want to instill that in their brother, their dad, so. But I think it instills a lot of confidence for a lot of men, which is really cool to be a part of.
Yeah.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes here of what we're here to discuss. So we're in the middle, or maybe we're probably in chapter 1, honestly, of the AI kind of revolution. From a venture capital standpoint, I hear, everyone has AI in their product these days, right? It almost feels like a necessity, and I become really cynical. As brands, you guys are getting pitched all the time as well to use AI in your tech stack. So let's dive into it. What are you guys seeing right now? What's interesting? What are you using to kind of drive results?
Sure. I guess I can go first. Yeah. So for Manly Bands, AI is kind of a all-encompassing, like it's used in every department in our business. And primarily, I think it's because, when we started talking about integrating AI into the business, it was like, okay, are people going to lose their jobs? Oh gosh, what's going to happen? And I actually have a completely different view of it. To me, it's an augmentation that we can give to every employee in our company that makes them 10 times as productive. It's if used correctly. Down the road, who knows? But right now, to me, that's where we are. And so we have it in every department. So our customer service team uses it to respond to tickets. We added an AI bot about 6 months ago, and it's now doing over 1,000 tickets a month. It's taking a huge load off of our relatively small CS team, and then they can focus on things that are escalated. And I heard a really good quote from the gentleman from Domo, the CDO from Domo last night, calling the human in the loop, which I think is brilliant. But it's so true. Like, we're not quite there where I can say, okay, AI, just go deal with it. Most of our AI interactions do have to have a human check and just make sure it's okay. So like, for instance, we also use it on our marketing team to answer comments on Facebook and Instagram. We're not quite ready to just let it hit send. So we definitely have somebody go through and look at it just to make sure, they don't say something really bad. We use it for reporting constantly. Like, we use it in different workflows for our fulfillment team in order to get data transferred from one API to others, because we're not all developers. And so we save a ton of money by asking AI to build it. And it's been great. It's been great. And there's lots of other use cases. The biggest use case for us is probably we're using a service called Maverick that came to us about 1.5 years ago. And what it does is it allows us to essentially send a customized video as either an abandoned cart email or as a thank you video from the founders to every one of our customers at scale. And I could not do over 10,000 videos a month, but this allows us to do that, essentially. And I feel kind of guilty about it, but the customers love it. It's great. Literally, we get emails, probably 100 emails a week, just saying, thank you so much for the video. This is really great. I can't believe your brand took the time to do this. And again, I feel guilty, but it's just nice. It's a really great way to interact with our customers, and
it's believable.
it is. It's totally believable. Yeah, totally realistic, totally believable. And honestly, if I had the time, I would totally do that. Like it's not something we wouldn't do, but it allows us to do things that kind of 10x what we would want to do anyway. Yeah, it's cool.
Anything from you on how the team's using AI?
All of the above. What I would say though is there's still a lot of vaporware floating around out there, and so we're actually more skeptical of a tool that leads with AI, to be honest. And part of our experience has been we used a tool called what was it, Recharmed, I think, that was used to optimize creative. And in theory, what it would do is you feed it a bunch of your assets that have maybe fatigued or no longer working or whatever, and then it's going to refresh those and allow them to perform at a higher level in Meta or wherever you might be doing your advertising. And we started using it a ton because we were seeing like a 20-25% improvement in efficiency, sometimes 30-40% improvement in efficiency on these assets. And we're like, whoa, this is amazing. This must be the AI that everyone has promised us. And then as we started using it more and more, it started slowing down. Like we were putting things through it, and then it would take like 12 hours for the AI to spit the thing back out to us. Well, come to find out, they had a team in the Philippines that was going in and recharming all these assets, because they called us and they're like, you're sending us way too much stuff. We don't want you as a customer anymore because we can't keep up. So I think prior to my experience at Lume, I was in management consulting, and I was at an accounting firm locally, Tanner. Some of you might know it. At that time, so we're going back like 7 or 8 years, we were getting pitched on all of the machine learning AI stuff that was going to automate accounting, and honestly, like it has done a lot of those things, but at that time, when machine learning was just coming on the mainstream scene, you had all of these companies, one of them locally. So Boothe, if any of you know it, was acquired by KPMG eventually, and they were a local startup. But there were a lot of hamsters running around inside of the machine, like doing all of the actual work. And it was kind of AI in theory, but there wasn't yet a ton. But since that stuff has evolved, so what I'd say is a little bit of buyer beware. Like I wouldn't get too far ahead of yourselves in terms of just buying every AI tool that you find out there, but absolutely for the use cases that have been described, really, really interesting. The other one I would flag for you is Amazon Marketing Cloud. So AMC is a tool that's been around for a long time, but you had to have like a PhD in something in order to actually use it because it was just so techy and the interface was tough. And Amazon has access to so much first-party data. It's rich with the ability to really target but the problem was like you really couldn't use it in a practical sense unless you had some really, really tech-savvy people on your team doing it. Now, Amazon, as of like a couple of weeks ago, released a generative AI that interfaces with AMC. So you can have someone that's just a little bit tech savvy and knows what questions to ask that can use the generative AI to tap into the power of AMC. And let me tell you, that is going to change the world on Amazon. So there are definitely things that you should watch for, but I'd say some of the stuff isn't quite ready yet.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, a lot of it comes down for me personally and the rest of the organization is down to efficiencies, right? I think like for a tool, like we're using this tool called Zowie, which is like on the CX side, where it can automate tickets or just take care of a lot of those mundane tasks and escalate the ones that are needed. I think for the most part, it's just like for a lot of AI, it's a lot of like stuff that I don't want to do or other people don't want to do. Like, to be honest, there's some tasks, there's some things that are necessary that you don't want to waste your time on, that you're like, I want to do the stuff that's actually going to drive impact, drive bottom line, and drive top line, and do the things that's, and historically being on the creative end, in my career has been on, creative production, brand strategy, and whatnot. So for me, I think AI is going to, there's going to be a lot of wins for it, but I think the human emotion is going to be what's going to root the creative long term, right? So the storytelling, the things, if you want AI or ChatGPT to write a bunch of headlines. It will do it, but it will only do it in the context that you give it, the prompts you give it, and with the LLMs and stuff. Yeah, it'll get better, but it's going to give you thought starters to be like having a conversation or a collaboration with somebody instead of, okay, I got to come up with all these headlines or these, body copy for this and that and this. So it's like, hey, spit me out a bunch of ideas. Doesn't mean I'm actually going to use it, but it's a conversation to have as you're collaborating with something that's nice. So you're like, okay, I'm going to get my thoughts out and then react to it in a way that's really going to connect to on the emotion side to people, right?
Building on that a little bit, so for our holiday marketing this year, we used it in that sort of similar way. So it provides inspiration, but it can also take a lot of the work out of graphic design and video editing. So you can feed graphic images. In fact, you can give it our entire content library and say, here's what we did for Christmas last year, and here's a whole bunch of other assets of all of our product images and everything else, lifestyle images and all that. Go create us some stuff. And then it goes and creates us a bunch of stuff. Now, is it stuff that we would actually post on our social media or product detail pages or website? Probably not. Not without a human in the loop, to your point. But it did reduce the amount of time required from our creative team to create those assets because it served as a source of inspiration. And in a lot of cases, it made it so that they just had to make some very minor adjustments, and those assets were ready to go. So it does have the ability to allow us to move a lot faster.
So a couple of thoughts really quick. I just pulled up on TikTok, rest in peace, I guess, for those of you that saw the note this morning, what the Supreme Court did. I got a note from one of our leaders just the other morning, which is a CMO. You're kind of like, oh, shoot. And this TikTok says, I don't understand why people don't use ChatGPT for marketing. It can save you thousands of dollars. Here are 10 ChatGPT prompts to replace your whole marketing team. I got that, and it was kind of like, great. Well, I guess this is my official notice. But if you take it in the right light, there are so many things that AI, and don't get me started on ChatGPT, there's safety and security things you got to be very aware of. But there are, without question, things that you should be doing and your team should be doing today in a safe and secure way. I had just a few mornings ago, I got a note from one of my direct reports that we were working on some video scripts. Video scripts, for anybody that's done a lot of script writing, to get it right can take a significant amount of time. The way the AI works is it's garbage in, garbage out. If the prompt is incredible, the output is going to be incredible. This direct report of mine has figured out how to harness the power of AI, and he created 6 video scripts in about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, which legitimately, and I'm looking at Blake, and Blake's like, yeah, but I know creative, and they probably sucked. That
I didn't say anything. I just looked at you.
I know. I know that look, Blake. But it all comes back to, is the context, like Blake talked about, there? Are you feeding the LLM the right kind of stuff? And are using the kinds of AI and things? I mean, you look today at what a lot of these big companies are talking about. You'll see things, and you'll hear more in the future about whether it's agentic AI. Salesforce is talking a ton about agentic. You're going to hear more about perceptive AI, physics AI, robotics AI. And so don't freak out about all the different things you could do, but start small today on figuring out what can make you more effective. Because when I saw the example from Jonathan, I own a small retail music store. And as soon as he sent me this example of, was it Maverick? Is that what it's called? I sent it to my tech guy and was like, what is this, and why are we not doing it? Because there are efficiencies that, to Jonathan's point, there are way more effective ways for him to spend his time than to spend 10,000 hours a week creating videos. Is that valuable? Yeah, 100 emails a week says it's valuable. But there's more valuable things that he can do with his time, and that simple example saves him thousands of hours.
I had a quick comment. I attune AI to a hammer. It's like you can bludgeon someone in the face, or you can actually build something. And to me, it's like the efficiency of, like, I have a better hammer, is I can work faster, or I can use it to depend my whole business on everything on AI. Which, yeah, you could, but you're only going to get to a certain point without bludgeoning yourself and your customers. So
At dinner last night, one of the people at my table shared a pretty good example of that. So how many of you sell on Amazon? Several. You've probably, if you sell on Amazon at any scale, you've probably been hit up for Buy with Prime or some other version of that. Well, why is that? Well, Amazon a few years ago, they created a model, and it was using machine learning and AI at the time. It wasn't generative AI, but it was using the tools at the time to predict. And by the way, AI does a pretty good job of prediction. And so they were predicting where they would need additional logistics and fulfillment capabilities and how that was going to grow. Well, what happened during the COVID period? We fed a bunch of bad data to that AI. And there wasn't a human in the loop. So they literally kept building fulfillment centers. And it was like Wile E. Coyote running off the edge of the cliff, and then there's no ground underneath them, and they're like, whoa, we have overbuilt to a really significant degree. So now buy with Prime. And so they're trying to get everybody to use all that fulfillment capacity because they let the bots, I don't know if they bludgeon themselves in the face, but they definitely let the bots kind of run amok. Another example on Amazon we've had recently this last fall, they turned loose a new bot at and they have, like, that company is run by bots. Don't get me started. But they turned loose a new bot, and it went in and blew up all of our product detail pages and all of our hierarchies and parent-child listing, relationships and everything, because it had decided that there was a better way to do it. And we saw conversion rate like fall off a cliff, and like so we're contacting our sales managers over there, but of course there's no real people at Amazon. They're all just bots, and so getting to talk to a real human is really tough. But we were finally able to get it addressed. But it turned out there was a team in Pakistan that had turned this bot loose, and it took like 2 months to get them to fix the issue. So it is important that you keep that human in the loop, and that you're careful that you don't just let the bots go nuts. It reminds me of like that WALL-E movie where you have those bots that are like running around cleaning up after everything. You just really got to be careful.
It is, and we're in the early phases too. Like you said, for me, I look at it. It's a tool. Like, it's a tool that we can use. It helps us grow what we already have. I kind of equate it to like Photoshop. Before Photoshop came on, graphic designers did everything by hand. Photoshop 10x, they're probably more than that, their productivity. You can't run a business with just Photoshop, though. You have to have somebody who knows how to use it. And I feel like AI is kind of the equivalent to that in today's age. Yeah.
So beyond marketing, and some of you touched on this, in what ways are other departments leveraging AI within your businesses? And I would open this up to Domo as well, being kind of the largest and perhaps the one who's most deeply embedded in the AI kind of integration scene.
Yeah, I'll start. So aside from marketing, there are so many ways. You look at what Jonathan's team is doing across the gamut. But no longer do you need to be, you can look at what Benioff has said or Zuckerberg around, not needing engineers anymore because AI is going to take over. I'm like, yeah, all right, good luck. But there are so many things that people can do today simply with AI, as long as the context is there and the data is in the right place to be able to make decisions. There are finance managers today. There are HR leaders. There are list the group. And from a Domo perspective specifically, they can easily ask the right questions. Maybe I'm the CEO of Bank of Utah, Ben Browning, who happens to be a good friend and sitting right back here. The power of AI today for someone like Ben is that he doesn't know how to write SQL. He probably does, actually. He's that smart. But most CEOs probably wouldn't be able to do that. And Ben could easily pick up, as long as his data is ready, AI ready is what we call it, as long as he's putting in the context, he could say, hey, show me which of my 19 branches have turned the best profit this week. Mm-hmm. Show me where we have the biggest problems. Show me where my employees aren't showing up at the right time. Show me where any infinite amount of questions. And within seconds, as long as the data is ready, you can have an answer and a chart and a graph and something actionable. You get into this agentic AI thing that Salesforce specifically is talking about. You can workflow the entire thing. You could all of a sudden have an automated email that goes out to your manager of the St. George branch saying, how come our profit margins are down by 14% over the past 3 days? He doesn't have time to look over 19 or however many different branches. But AI, as long as your data is AI ready, as long as it is prepared to be able to make those decisions, you have the skill set with AI to be able to say, I can answer any question that I need to answer today.
Yeah, it's like the greatest Swiss Army knife in the world. Like it really is. But like you said, the most important part is that data has to be ready, because it truly is garbage in, garbage out. You have to be so careful.
Oh, I was just going to say it's less of a marketing. Well, for example, at True Classic, it's more of an operational excellence where every department is so closely tied, from product to CX to marketing to the BI team to whatever. Every week we pull in all of our data, our scorecards, and we review it. Everybody has 5 minutes. What worked, what didn't, how do we improve? And we go through this very close cycle, because when you go from a D2C specific retail brand and you scale omni-channel through, marketplaces or owned retail or wholesale, everybody has to be on the same page. So, because marketing specifically is servicing all of these, so there has to be an affinity with like operationally of like how we're using AI to inform everybody collectively. And I think that's the important thing is you have to get everybody on board for those efficiencies. So.
Yeah, great thoughts. So there is one other place we use it, but like a lot. But before I share that, I would just say AI, and particularly generative AI, is unbelievably energy intensive. So you're seeing like Amazon, Facebook, Google, all these companies that for years have been on the carbon reduction bandwagon, jump right off. Like it took them all like a hot second to say, actually, we think we need energy to power all this stuff that we're building. And so they're actually building power plants in like Washington State and places like this, which is wild to see that total about face. But they've realized that the energy requirements for some of these AI models are intense. And so while there are other applications for generative AI for sure, what I would posit is that the place it's going to be applied first and the highest and best use for what is going to become a very finite resource in terms of all of that computing power is probably marketing. So like what did we do with the earlier AI stuff? Like we took our smartest engineers in the world and we had them build TikTok and addict people to it. So that's the places where the money, and I think a lot of the energy is going to continue to flow, is marketing, because that's where the money is, and that's where a lot of the value is. That isn't to say you can't use it other places. So an example that I'll give is we use a tool called Blue Yonder for all of our demand and supply planning, and there are AI modules in there that are really powerful in terms of helping us to predict where demand is going to show up at an incredibly granular level. So you talk about omni-channel and all these. Are you wholesale? Are you owned retail? Are you marketplace? Where should I deploy the inventory when? Well, it's pretty difficult to have an inventory manager make all of those decisions. It's incredibly complex. So if you can use generative AI to ask questions with the right data to be able to say, well, where should we deploy this to maximize contribution profit dollars across all the portfolio of channels where we're showing up, and it can give you some non-intuitive results. So for instance, you may find that, well, actually, there's a whole bunch of festivals happening in the Southeast at this particular time of the year or whatever, and units per store per week jump during that time. Well, that's something that's hard for an analyst to just notice in real time and say, oh, we ought to probably send a little bit more inventory that direction. But it's the kind of thing that AI can really enable.
Yeah, it real quick, it made me think about just selling through sell through. There's quite a big difference, right? I don't think anybody has gotten this right. Like even a Nike or any of these big retailers, they're doing this in a way, or I mean, even them. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing, because you're sitting on cash. When you're sitting on inventory, you're sitting on so much cash that's just like if you don't make the right buy, if you don't do the right things, and I think that's the thing I'm excited about most with AI is like, how could we get those predictive modelings in the forefront? So it's like, hey, we don't overbuy, and they're like, oh crap, we're sitting on 80,000 SKUs, and then you're like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Okay, let's just discount everything or give it away or do whatever. It's not really efficient. So.
And on the product development side too, so if you go all the way upstream, you look at companies like ELF, the cosmetics company. What they're doing is using some AI predictive models. I don't think they're using Gen AI yet, but they're using predictive modeling to help them understand which products are most likely to be most resonant, so they know which ones to prioritize in production. And so you can run it all the way up the chain. But to your point, like the holy grail is figuring out how to get the right inventory in the right place at the right time, so you don't have all this cash just sitting there. Yeah.
So I sat on an interesting demo just recently. So as part of my role, I run all the marketing, and then our account development organization is under me as well. And I had an opportunity to go listen to this company called One Mind, the number one and then Mind. Go check them out. It's kind of eerie and crazy.
Is it like the Borg?
It is legitimately. I mean, it is AI personas who can answer questions for you. You know, I look at a big group of account development managers that are out doing pre-sales and helping with customers and everything else. What do I think that they all need to be worried for their jobs? Of course I don't. I don't, because we're all going to be able to use AI to make ourselves more efficient and effective. But what I realized on that call is humans have a finite amount of information that they can keep in their brains. As I watched this AI literally just interacting and knowing anything and everything in a kind of eerie, creepy way, it was like, holy cow, every single PowerPoint and one slider and image and blog post and can be uploaded into this AI and can literally look like a human and can answer any question that my account development managers would never, ever be able to remember. Not because they're not brilliant, because they are, but because there's no way that their brains can keep all that information. So when we look at, is it just marketing? No, I'd look at every single part of your business could and should, maybe not right now, but in the near future, figure out, how can I make my salespeople more effective? How could I make this talent organization more effective? How can I make, but again, look carefully at, is there context? Am I ready for that? And am I using a platform that is safe and secure? Because some of you know the way that some of the LLMs work, you're just throwing stuff out into the ether. And so stuff is not necessarily safe. Make sure that you're doing your checking to know what's happening with that data, what could happen with my people. But it is so much further along. As I sat in that demo, I was like, oh my goodness, are we really here? It was kind of an out-of-body-like experience. And it kind of creeped me out. And it's real.
So Skynet's coming, right? Is that what you're saying?
Skynet's here.
It's
China
here.
built it. In fact, they called it that.
So
right?
to build off of that point from Mark, I'm curious, organizationally, how do you guys structure your teams as it relates to AI? Like, earlier, Jonathan, you had mentioned that it should empower every single person within your org. So do you have one czar within your organizations who kind of everything needs to be, if it's an AI product that you're going to be implementing, it needs to be vetted first by that individual? Or is everyone empowered, each team empowered? Like, how do you organize yourself with respect to this?
I'll start, and then I'd love to hear what John and Blake have to say. Data quality. So that's what we have to have the czar for, because if you don't have someone who is ultimately making sure that whatever data we're using to feed into these AI tools is really sound, and we all understand the ways in which that data was created and what the parameters are. If we're comparing even just simple things like prices across channels, you'd think that's really easy, but the way that you calculate discounts off of each of those different channels and the way that you calculate trade spend and all these other things are pretty complex. And so making sure that you've got really, really good data definitions and that someone is the czar for all of that stuff is particularly important in our case. I don't know what the two of you think.
Just real quick on that, if I can double click, just because we have I assume we have an audience with vastly different needs. Like, what scale do you need to be in order to have a czar in place? I mean, is it when you're just getting started, or when?
Well, someone needs to be the directly responsible individual. So, however you divvy that up, you may only have a team of 5 or 10 or whatever the number is, but one person ultimately needs to own data quality and consistency, and like, how do we think about that stuff? And early days, like, you won't be able to do all of it, but for some of your most critical data, you can start to ask the question, well, like, this is so inconsistent in terms of the way that it's all put together. It's not even useful. We can't apply any of these tools. So, like, what would be a first step we could take towards making it more consistent and creating some reasonable data definitions for how this comes together? And again, it doesn't have to be like one person's full-time job, but eventually it does.
Yeah, and I think I would add, at least at our organization, it's myself. You know, we're pretty small, relatively speaking, and I have an interest in it, and also I have access to everything. So it kind of makes sense for myself to kind of run most of the data. But I totally agree. If the data is not accurate, then it's not going to help anybody. So just using customer service as an example, like oftentimes, well, not only do we have our bot AI that answers chats and emails, but our team also may have questions, and especially if there are newer members to the team and they need more training or whatnot, they may not know everything. The rings are actually quite, especially with materials and sizes and all that good stuff, they're pretty complex. And so, you know, we have a customer database that we're using, or not a customer database, like a product knowledge base, I guess you'd call it, where we do plug in AI. But the problem is that if we change our policies, like if they're like, oh, well, what's our return policy on black zirconium? Like, how do we handle that if it's engraved? Like, now that's pretty complex. It's like, okay, if the person doesn't know and they're waiting for somebody on chat and their manager's in a meeting and they can't ask, well, now they have this knowledge base. But at the end of the day, if the data in the knowledge base is wrong, they're going to give the customer the wrong information. So in that case, that's not something where I can necessarily be in the knowledge base updating customer service all the time. So for that, we will say, okay, the way it's set up, the technology behind it, I'll manage, but we're going to pass on the responsibility of that data to our customer service manager. So they know that every week or every month they go in and they'll look at it, make sure all our policies are updated, they're all correct, and so that information can be utilized.
I think the biggest thing comes down to like a decision framework, right? You know, like we employ kind of like a 1-3-1 method where it's like identify the problem, brings 3 solutions, and then make a decision. And I think on the AI side, especially on the MarTech side, there's so many tools. For anybody here that's in marketing, there's way too many tools that are very good at very specific, and then there's some that are so broad. And I think that's part of, on the MarTech side, that's part of the problem. But I think in terms of we validate and we test a lot of stuff, right? So we have a lot of brands, you know, from AI that, hey, come test our product. We'll test it out. We'll validate it. We'll try it out. We kind of rotate. It's not like one and done. It's kind of like we test, we verify, we see what other brands, we talk to those other brands. So we get like a more humanistic, like instead of just, hey, we're going to start using this and then hope for the best, right? So it's more of a validation and decision framework with the BI team and the rest of our organization. So
I think the thing that I would answer is the need for governance. Whether your organization is 3 people or 300 or 3,000, Jonathan, to your point, like how do we make sure that the documentation, when you think of that demo that I was on just a couple of weeks ago with OneMind, what happens if things change to your pricing model and you haven't updated that documentation? What happens if SKUs are no longer available and that person who's running the governance hasn't updated things? You're in big trouble. What happens? Exactly what happened with Amazon. You end up building a whole bunch of distribution centers that you're never going to use. So that is, when we talk about human in the loop, the need for a human to be able to be that czar that can say, yeah, that's okay, or nope, let's change that a little bit, because the AI is going to just take what you feed it. And if you're not feeding it or updating the right information, you're going to be in real big trouble real quick.
And that might change in the future when we can trust AI to the point, and I don't know if this will ever happen, and I don't think I'll ever want to do it, but when we can say, hey, here's our organization, just go learn. And maybe that's 5-10 years away, and again, I don't know if I'd even trust it, but maybe we'll get there. I don't know.
So you've each, over the course of this discussion, touched on several different tools. I'm curious, what's your favorite tool that you think no one has heard of that's leveraging AI that you would kind of give a commercial about for a 60-second commercial to make people aware of something that you're leveraging that's working for you that others could leverage as well?
I mean, I can't come up with one specific one because, like you, I'm so cynical when it comes to AI. I mean, the tried and true still is like the ChatGPT, but another one is Perplexity is another one for like, more on the mathematical, financial modeling kind of side. I think is super interesting as well because it's very specific. But to me, it's like I'm still skeptical. I mean, I attune AI to crypto, where crypto is kind of this fanciful, but to me, it's all about the ledger. The ledger is the part that's the most interesting to me. It's not the all these different crypto verticals. It's about the digital ledger. That's the most interesting part. So for me, I'm still a skeptic, so I can't just say like it's this one tool, but I think it's the thing. It's going to evolve, and it's going to evolve probably the fastest. It's going to evolve probably in the next like 6 to 18 months. It's going to evolve extremely fast.
I'd probably point you to the one that I shared earlier, which is the new AI from Amazon that allows you to run queries in AMC. So that one I think is potentially game changing. What I'd say though, in addition to that, is regardless of the size of your organization, if you're like a 2-person startup or if you've got 50 people at your company, it's really, really important to learn. And exponential growth happens slowly and then all at once. And our brains work in a linear fashion, so it doesn't even matter what exponential growth function underlies what we're looking at. We're gonna totally miss it. And so, in order to protect ourselves against that tendency, it's really important to just grab a couple of them. If you've got customer support as a function, we happen to use Gorgias, and Gorgias has an automation module within there that leverages AI, and you can automate a pretty significant portion of your customer support interactions. You've got to be careful because customer experience matters a lot, so you don't want to outsource that to a bot necessarily. But if somebody's just saying, "Where's my order?" you can probably have a bot say, "Well, here's your tracking information." But so I guess my point here is that if you have tools you're using today, like pick one. Identify some AI thing out there. Go listen to the sales pitch of that annoying salesperson that keeps emailing you. Don't buy it. You don't have to buy it. Like just learn about it and take one of them and like try it out and start to understand how these tools can be used. Because I think that is far more important than any like silver bullet tool. The fact of the matter is, most of these tools, because of how rapidly things are evolving, the amount of time you're going to have for that competitive advantage is going to be very finite. Like it isn't going to last very long at all. And that's been true throughout the evolution of the information age, really, because just because you figured out some SEO hack that some one of your buddies told you about, don't tell anybody, but this is the way you do it and you can trick the algorithm. Well, within 6 months, like Google's figured that out and they've closed that window, and so you got to move on to the next one. So I think what's most important is to stay on the bleeding edge of learning for yourself and for your team, so that you're able to recognize those patterns when you see them and capitalize on the opportunities to leverage those tools, because none of us know which one is going to be the silver bullet.
That's such a great point. Such a great point. And I know last night you taught me about a number of things that I was unaware of, just because we have such an avid learner here when it comes to AI in Dan.
Yeah. I would also echo that. I mean, you have to evolve with it. I mean, AI is evolving so fast. And I've even seen startups that have pitched me a year ago. They've come back. It's a completely different service now. Same name, completely different offering, and it's kind of crazy because it's like, well, what if we invested or really worked with them over the course of the last year? Like now they're a whole different business. So they're evolving. We need to evolve. We need to stay on top of it and continue learning. And in terms of tools, I'd go back to what I said before. We're pretty practical in how we use AI. We want to make sure there's an ROI, and every tool that we use, we definitely see that. And so for us, the customer service stuff is some of the most important stuff that we can do, and on the marketing side, the same. So Maverick is a great tool. For those of you who are like power email users, I used to use Superhuman, but now I switched over to Shortwave, which has a lot of really great AI tools built into it. So it helps you organize your email and like find priorities. I'll say like, hey, what do I need to respond to like today? Well, these emails are the most urgent. You should look at these. And so you got to take it all with a grain of salt, but it's helpful, and it does take a little bit of cycles away that you would normally use. And I find that while AI is a lot of hype and it's a lot of vaporware, it can help make your life a little easier so you can be more productive. And so we look at it like that.
So we're going to take questions from the audience in about 3 minutes, but we're going to give these three the opportunity to tell everyone the single most important thing for retailers to be doing with AI today. The single most important thing for a retailer to be doing today with AI. What is it? Dan Griffiths, you're up.
That's like saying, what's the meaning of life?
Well, you got 1 minute, so get to work.
Yeah. So this is something I haven't talked about. If you're on e-com marketplaces, and if you're not, you need to figure out how to do that. Because a lot of people are buying stuff there, and maybe your products they aren't. Maybe you sell something that weighs 1,000 pounds, and so like if you sell home generators, maybe it's not on a marketplace. But if it can be shipped in a box, then you need to be there. And Rufus is the tool that Amazon has released here over the last few months.
As a marketer, though, really? That's what we call it.
Well, the marketers didn't get to name it, right? I'll bet the bots named it. So Rufus has completely changed the game for search, and it's not just Rufus; it's tools like Rufus. So Rufus is Gen AI, and what it has done is completely eliminated lexical search. In other words, keyword search from Amazon no longer exists. It's not a thing. Anybody that was working at a marketing agency a couple of years ago that was like doing all this lexical search stuff to optimize product detail pages and listings and everything, all totally irrelevant, gone. So you need to figure out what that means for the future of the world, because a lot of people find your products through search, whether it's on Amazon or whether it's somewhere else, and that is likely the future of search. So figure out, what does it mean to have Gen AI deciding which products are showing up on the SERP, because that's gonna have a huge impact, and it's different product by product, category by category. So you're really going to need to spend some time thinking through that and learn as much as you can, because it's here and it's going to change a lot.
That's the meaning of life right there, Rufus.
Yeah.
Rufus.
We actually had a meeting. We actually had a meeting about that with our SEO team last week, and we were saying, what's going to change with Google, like with AI, like as it is now. Like I don't know about you guys, but I don't generally go beyond the first or second page of Google results, and so some of our keywords we rank for number one, which is hugely helpful, obviously. But we're like, well, with this new Google thing where it just kind of writes the answer for you, are we really getting search engines or like answer engines? Because it's like you don't need to click through all these results. So how do you not game the system, but how do you maintain your organic position? Like, how do you use Google? And Google represents about 40% of our revenue. So it's like that's a huge challenge we have to figure out how to overcome, to your point. So that's a really good point. In terms of like what's the most important thing I'd look for AI, I'd say just trying to keep on top of it. I think you're right. It's a train that's left the station, and if you're not on it, it's going to be a problem. At least in terms of it, again, I go back to the Photoshop thing. If you're a graphic designer or photography editor or something like that, you have to know Photoshop. And if you don't, you're left behind. And I think AI is the same way for all of our businesses, and eventually probably for other parts of our life.
Yeah, I think it comes down to first principles in terms of like, it's a tool. I mean, you use it. It is a tool. It is not going to change your life, or it could really help improve the business on so many different aspects. But I think the biggest part is really going to come around with making sure going back to your point about data governance, and like that is probably, I would figure that stuff out first in terms of the prompts, making sure you're using the right tools for the right reasons, not because this, someone's selling you a course or someone telling you how to do this or do that. You're going to find so many diametrically opposed opinions on so many things. You have to make sure that you're doing it for what you believe in, your intuition, and what's best for your business. Don't rely on other people telling you to use this tool. If it's interesting to you, try it out. See if it works for you. And then I think the most important thing is that data governance, make sure the prompts, making sure the data is there. Because I think what happens is people get so used to just the input, and you just like, okay, I'll just take whatever you give me and cross your fingers and hope it's correct, right? And I don't think that's really efficient, but I think just be aware of.
Oh, it's very efficient. You can build a lot of fulfillment centers you don't need if you
That
do
is
that.
right. I mean, if I was construction, then I'd be yes.
So let's pivot. Let's open it up to the audience. I don't know if there's a mic, a roaming mic, or not. No.
I can roam mics. I'm good at roaming mics.
Thank you for your very insightful statements and everything. I had a question regarding the internal aspect. So, as he mentioned, keeping in the human in the loop is very difficult when the tool that you're using is far outbeating human capacity. And so, how do you morally reconcile the issue of adding a brick to the building of a Borg for the profits?
Go ahead.
Oh, sure. So can you help me understand? So you're more concerned about like how would we make sure with the massive capacity that AI has that at some point how can we make sure all the information that it has is accurate and safe and
Yeah, when the capacity to handle the information is far surpassing the human agent, then keeping a human in the loop kind of becomes meaningless. Yesterday, Derek Brown, the AG, mentioned this idea that, it could constitute malpractice for a lawyer to not use ChatGPT. I mean, these kind of things displace, this is the first tool that we have that displaces the human. So that's why I was asking.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, so the question is, what is it displacing? So, yes, the bot can access a library of information that the human brain simply cannot. However, there are things that the bot can't do. So then you have to ask the question, like, so for our customer support team, do we need them to get really good at looking up tracking information for orders? Or do we need them to get really good at communicating in an empathic way with a customer that's frustrated? And I think we're going to find that the bots are going to struggle 10 for 10 to truly provide a human connection on the other side of the interaction in the case of like the support example. And I think when we look at like the way we're using Gen AI to write queries, oh my goodness, like it can write queries way more effectively, but the bot doesn't know what queries to, like, it doesn't know how to structure the questions that we should be asking. So we need humans in the loop who can ask really good, insightful questions and understand what are the parameters under which this generative AI has been developed, and so how can I best leverage it to leverage my impact? So it's focusing the human effort on the things that really only the human can do as well as the human can do it. And then letting the bots do the stuff that the bots can do way faster, way better than the human can.
yeah.
And I think the big key there is that things are going to shift over time. These models become more and more brilliant every single second as you feed it with more information. So be prepared to, humans are always going to be needed and they're always going to be valuable, but their jobs are going to change. For sure, they're going to shift.
And the models also degrade over time. So it is not the case that it is this unending progress toward the pinnacle of technological achievement. Like you start providing information to these models that's a little bit off kilter, and then all of a sudden the bot starts acting like it's drunk. So you really have to. I don't think the human's ever going to completely go away because somebody has to be there to keep an eye on what's happening.
Very insightful panel, thank you. First, I have a shameless plug. I work for Fidelity Investments. We've done a lot of research in AI. fcatalyst.com would be a great resource. There's a lot of this that's very context mapped to this conversation that we've published publicly. But my question, actually, you guys have spoken a lot around sort of the use in retail. That's sort of the presentation has been very focused on marketing. Are you using AI in supply chain management at all? Are you applying it to track inventories, optimize inventory ordering?
Yes, the Blue Yonder example I gave earlier would be the best one of that. So we do use it there quite a lot. It's there's some generative AI that we're using there, but most of it is still the predictive models that were built 5 years ago that have been refined significantly over time. But we're not yet using it in like a full Gen AI, you make all the orders for us yet. That exists though. And so on the supply side, for our supply planning cycles this quarter, we are going to be using it to create the first pass of supply planning and kind of see how it goes.
Question over here. Jeremy, right here.
Just quick shout out, Jeremy Brockbank, our mic man. He's what brought this panel together. So just want to give him a shout out and thank him for bringing all of us together today.
Nice job, Jeremy. So my question's more personal. I've got a 17-year-old son, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to become when he grows up. What direction do I aim him for college? Government, doctor, or AI, cybersecurity? Where do you go with this, with the future?
Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah, that's tough. A couple of years ago, my nephew was finishing up high school and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and I was like, "Oh, you have to be a coder. Coder's the way to go. Like that's everybody's saying. We're building these amazing things." And then I find myself a non-developer, non-coder using AI to write crazy SQL queries and JavaScript and all this crazy stuff. I don't know if we're going to need like coders as much in the next 10 years. We will always need people to have the ideas and maybe direct the AI and things like that, but I don't know if we're going to need the people actually writing the code. So I don't know if that would be the way to go. But cybersecurity, I think AI is going to unlock all sorts of Pandora's boxes when it comes to cybersecurity and things like that. And that scares me a little bit when you think down the road, what's AI going to do, from nation states and stuff like that, like where things can go. So I always think that's a good place.
I was just gonna say, it depends on what he loves to do. End of the day, right? So for me, I got into design 20-something years ago. So when I was in high school, it was like 2000. I built my own computer at Fry's Electronics, and this is when computers were still painfully slow. And I was in the music scene, and I had a lot of bands and a lot of friends in the music scene in Southern California. And so when I built my first computer, I started torrenting, if LimeWire, Photoshop 2 or something like that, started messing around. And then when I got to college, I was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to teach history. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I wanted to be all these random things that I was trying to figure out who I was at the time. And so for me, it was but my hobby, like torrenting, like making, album artwork, posters, all this stuff, I was super fascinated. I loved to do it because it was an expression of who I was. And so for me, my hobby ended up turning into my career. And now that career, especially being on the creative side historically, is like, I'm not afraid of, yes, there's going to be a lot of things like, hey, make me a poster, Gen AI, help me do this, help me do that. But it always goes back to the human connection. I think that's the part where AI is not going to replace like the insight to humanity. It will happen at some point, but a very small degree. But I think for the most part, like those types of things, I think are like, I'm not afraid of it. It's just going to be an alteration in a lot of industries to make them more efficient, to really, what can I do to connect more with the customer that's going to give them reasons to believe why this product or this service is going to make their life better.
That makes me think of a more controversial take in response to your question. So what I might posit is we're going to need people who understand what their values are, why they are, and are able to clearly articulate that. So I might almost encourage your son or daughter to go into philosophy or something like that, because we're going to need moral people who understand how we take what is tremendously powerful technology and deploy it in a way that makes humanity better, that is actually pro-human. And I think that's actually going to be a bigger challenge than any of the technology itself.
So we're at time, everyone. I'm gonna say a couple of quick closing words and then hand it to Barrett to close us out. I think that find your curiosity. That's what I'd tell your son. That's what I would tell every single one of you. Stay really, really curious. That's how you're going to be successful with AI and any other technology that comes along. But making sure that you have that strong moral compass that's like, this is what matters to me, and this is what I will do and won't do with the technology, because there's some real crazy crap you can do with AI today, I can assure you. And so be careful and be wise, but don't be afraid to start using these technologies that could change your business for real. Yeah. And with that, Barrett, to close us out.
Yeah, Jeremy, here, you close us out. I have nothing profound to say. I just want to thank everyone for coming. It's been great. I'm sure that many of you could be up here on stage, and we can all learn from one another. So please take this opportunity to network with those with whom you're sitting next to. Come talk to those who are on stage. And Jeremy has a quick announcement about the next session.
Well, first off, thank you guys very much for coming. Just remarkable people that have kind of risked everything to kind of, be where they're at. Appreciative for Silken Slopes letting us put this on. We have, we've been kind of rotating back and forth down to the second level. The next one that's coming up in 15 minutes is actually going to be here. It's understanding and leveraging the key trends in manufacturing. We have Jonathan's better half on that one, Michelle, Spencer Eccles, Val, the CEO of Kodiak Cakes, Casey, who's with Lane VC, and Bill Strickland with Myers Max. So anyway, just a big round of applause for these wonderful guys.